Let's go.
Welcome to DrWhitty Today. Today's discussion on leading with heart, the power of emotional intelligence, features Dr. V. Boykin, a renowned keynote speaker, published researcher, and a distinguished leader in the field of organizational leadership and equity. Her expertise lies in addressing workplace equity for people of color and women. Listeners and viewers, here and at home, please welcome our host, Dr. Whitty. All right. How is everybody doing? Welcome to DrWhitty Today. Tonight, we are going to have an awesome show. We've got Dr. V. Boykin in the house, and we are ready for this discussion talking about the power of emotional intelligence. So I want to start off with a question first. And that question is, have you ever been in a room where somebody just didn't get it? They were saying the wrong thing. They were saying the wrong thing to the wrong people. Was that person you? Maybe it was you. If so, this discussion tonight is for you because we're going to talk about the power of emotional intelligence, leading from the heart. Dr. Boykin.
Yes.
How are you?
I am great. I found a quote for you. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Take it away.
I'm putting on my glasses. It's going to make me sound super smart. Anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person, to the right degree, at the right time, for the right purpose, and in the right way, that is not easy. So that is Aristotle, probably stolen from one of us, but we'll go with Aristotle for now, for the win.
All right. Aristotle is good. I have a few quotes from him myself. So I like Aristotle. Well, I'm going to, if you don't mind, I'm just going to go down my little checklist here. I want to make sure that those that don't already know who Dr. V is, that they get a little bit of snippet of who you are. And then, of course, they'll get a lot more as we go along. So Dr. V. Boykin, Vrnda V. Boykin. She's a trailblazer in organizational leadership and equity. She's a respected keynote speaker. She's an accomplished researcher and I already said she's a trailblazing leader in the field of organizational leadership and equity. Her expertise centers around workplace equity and people of color and also women. So through her research and practical experience, she has illuminated the critical role of social support systems in fostering inclusive environments. She skillfully leverages her knowledge to transform and redefine leadership, emphasizing empathy, collaboration, and equity.
I'm just here for the introduction. Come on, come through.
Gotta introduce you right, Dr. V. We've got to introduce you right.
But Dr. V, I've been that person in the room with no emotional intelligence. I just got to tell the truth out of the gate, or there'll be no credibility. Anybody that knows me that is watching this, I've been that person that's not gotten it, and I've also been in rooms with people, and you're just like, what? Yeah. Why? How are you having this intercourse, this discourse? How are you like saying these things with these people? It just makes no sense. So I've been there.
Well, I found out that I've been there because as we had our discussion prior to going live, I introduced a scenario to you, and well, I'll just say it right here, and then maybe you can tell everybody what you told me. I shared with Dr. V that I can remember years ago when I came across this coworker, and every time I walked into her office, she had this frown on her face, and it was like you could feel this negative energy every time you were around her. And so I had purposed in my mind that I was going to make sure that she smiled. And so one day I went up to her and I talked to her and I asked her about why she was frowning all the time. And I told her that I was going to get her to smile. And she told me that I would never get her to smile. And so I made it my goal from that day forward to get her to smile. And even though eventually she broke a smile and we had a big laugh, and from then on, She very seldom frowned. Whenever she saw me coming, she smiled. She was always happy. Um, but I found out, Dr. V, what did you tell me?
I said that in that situation, you may have been the person lacking emotional intelligence. I
Yeah.
mean, there's so many things that you can do for a woman in the workplace besides make her smile. You can help her get a promotion. You can help her voice not be marginalized. You can help her be elevated at work. You can help her accomplish a difficult task. You know, one of the things I shared with you, and we're friends, so I can say it. I
Thank
shared
you. Thank
was,
you.
look, we're not here to perform for men. We're not here to appear a certain way, and we're not here to respond a certain way. We're here to be as professional as you are. And there is nothing about professionalism that requires a smile. So I'm speaking for the collective group. There are many other things we would like you to do besides invest your time in getting us to smile. You and construction workers, both of y'all.
All right, all right. Thank you so much for that. So hey, along with my audience, I'm here to listen in. I'm here to learn. I want DrWhitty Today, this platform, to be a place where our hearts, our mind, our spirits can go to college. It may not be a place where you actually graduate and get the degree, the certificate, but it's going to be a place where you come to be a lifelong learner. So that is the goal of this platform. There's no perfect people here, but there are people
Right.
that are striving to become better versions of themselves each and every day. So I just appreciate the opportunity to be in the house with you. So I'm going to be eavesdropping in on the conversation with everybody else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with Dr. V.
Yes.
What is emotional intelligence?
Um, well, first off, I love that I can come to this platform and learn as well, and I don't have the student loans associated with it. So I don't need the degree because I'm not getting those loans. Emotional intelligence is checking yourself and also being in a position where you can politely and effectively check others. Emotional intelligence is self regulation, period, end of story. And it's regulating how you're feeling based on what's going on and who's in the room and picking up on those social cues. It's something that you don't always get right. It's something that is fluid, right? It's hard to put your hands around it, but you definitely know when it's not present, and you definitely know when it is present.
All right. I'm glad you talked about picking up on those emotional cues or cues from others, because that's not only is it self-management, but like you said, it's being able to recognize it. And as I think I heard some people refer to it as feeling the room, knowing what's going on around you so that you can conduct yourself accordingly. And as you spoke of, as we were off the air, just being that person in the room, not knowing what to say, not knowing when to say it, not knowing how to say it or who to say it to, that can be a person that's lacking emotional intelligence. So that's a part of what we want to learn today. When I'm in a situation, when I'm in that room, what should I say? How should I say it? When should I say it? And who should I say it to? Because we can say some things and it not be well received, not only by the person that we say it to, but to everybody else in the room. And then we find ourselves being the only one that's not getting or not having a clue, as
Right.
you might say. All right. So let's say, what is the difference between emotional intelligence and IQ?
Oh, that's a great question. I think, emotional intelligence is your social IQ,
Mhm.
right? If we say that IQ is and there's a lot of debate, but we're saying this is your God gifted baseline intelligence, your ability to reason and to learn as a baseline, and you can improve from that depending on the school of thought that you subscribe to. Emotional intelligence is the social version of that and how you move through, and it is the foundation, in my opinion. All of this is my opinion, y'all. I didn't write a dissertation on emotional intelligence. Let me be clear. So correct me in the comments. That's cool. I'm here for it. But it's based on empathy, and empathy newsflash, is not without accountability, right? It doesn't mean that your boss or your friend is going to say to you, you get a hall pass. It's no problem what you did. It means they're going to say, hey, this is hard. I understand where you were when you said it. Here's the correction we need to make. And it's being able to pick up on that. It's modulating your energy so that other people have space to show up. I could go down a list of what it's not based on the decisions that I've made, and you do better every day as you can.
I like that. I like that. Awesome. Awesome. So why do you think we are missing the mark? And when I say we, I'm talking about today's organizations. Why do you think that we are missing the mark when it comes to making the connection, not only with people that are in our same, what do you want to call it, our same generation, but the people that are not in our generation? Why are we missing the mark?
I think the biggest thing, we're in a capitalistic society, right? At least if we're talking to those people, specifically in the United States, for example. And that comes with an assumption that wealth is a baseline motivation, that we all share that in common. But that varies a lot between the generations. Somebody that survived the 1920s has a very different attachment and prioritization of wealth than perhaps somebody that's coming up now who has enjoyed a longer time within their parents' home, who has less bills and less stress. Totally different. I don't remember being in 4th grade and being motivated by wealth. I was motivated by bubblegum. And thank you to my friend Tanya that always seemed to have some. So that's the main thing, right? If you are not understanding someone's motivation and ascribing your own motivation to that person, you're starting off with a disconnect. There's also the cultural aspect, which falls into self-regulation. The exuberance that I've always felt from the friends that I have, some specific friends I have from a specific region of Kenya, they have a joy to them that is unparalleled by any other Black person that I interact with that is United States born and bred. There's a difference. There's a levity, there's a joy. This is my experience, again, not science. But their self-regulation of expression of exuberance may not be the same as somebody that was raised in a different culture, right? So I think we start with this premise that if I'm like this, everybody must be. And that literally is the opposite premise that you need to start with a solid foundation of emotional intelligence. This book helps. Emotional Intelligence 2.0 it's creased up. I know my colleagues would like me to keep it pasted right here by my computer sometimes. But there's tools that can help you.
That is the book. I'll tell you something about that book. That is the book that I often see when I'm at the airport or I'm traveling. And would you believe that every time I went and picked it up, I put it back down and I didn't get it? That could be a sign. But that book is definitely one. I actually have about 2 or 3 in my cart right now that I'm going to get on emotional intelligence. I'm so glad that you brought up the connection aspect, because that is definitely a part of the conversation, is being able to connect. And I love the way Dr. John Maxwell, he's one of my favorite thought leaders on leadership. And he says that everyone communicates, but few people connect. And I just love that quote, because a lot of people do a lot of talking, but I feel like, just when I asked you where are we missing the mark, we're missing the mark in our organizations because we're not connecting with each other. We're not connecting with the other generations. And so we are losing people because we're not interested in learning, as you said, learning about aspects of their identity and aspects of their culture that is important to them. We only care about ourselves. And so that is why we are not connecting with the people that are around us. So yeah, that emotional intelligence is key when it comes to that, making that activity. Go ahead.
Dr. Whitty, I work with millennials. I work in tech. I'm the old person there. And I mean, there's this whole narrative around what they're like. The worst thing they've ever done to me is maybe snicker a little bit because I double space after a period. Like, that's the worst harm they've done. These are brilliant, intelligent, hardworking people. But my generation, we are like, nope, that double space was the way it was done. And I walked up to school uphill both ways. Every generation is telling the story about the struggle. There is no generation that is not intelligent, without merit, without value, without contribution. And so sometimes we just have to get out, all the time, we have to get out of our own way.
All right. Now, so what are talk to us about a few components of emotional intelligence.
Well, I think the most important one, oh gosh, I shouldn't say that because then I'm going to say, well, that one's important too. Self-awareness is key. There's a gentleman by the name of Mr. Mark Boykin, and sometimes he would say to me, do you realize you're being a little bratty right now? And I'd say, I'm absolutely aware. I'd say, do you want to do something about that? Absolutely not. So, right, the first thing is self-awareness. Then there needs to be a desire to interact with the world as if you have self-awareness. But foundationally, self-awareness is one of them. And that's understanding the impact you may be having on other people. It is tied very tightly to self-regulation. And that's one, especially when it comes to facial expressions. I can't tell you how many times I've been told, or how long I've been told in my career, to fix my face or some variation of it. It's on my face. I don't have enough Botox to totally erase my facial expression. I've tried. I've gone 200 units. We still got, what in the world are you talking about? Like that, but that is part of self-regulation, and is an area that you work on, because nobody wants to be talking to you and know that you think they're stupid. They would like you to hide that, even if it's true to you in that moment. Like, nobody wants that. And those two things, you can't get to empathy. You can't get to social skills. You can't get to motivation if you're not going to be self-aware and able to self-regulate. That's Self-regulation is the key to successful relationships, no matter how they show up. And when you get off base with self-regulation, bad things happen.
So there's a part, well, I won't say a part, but a basis of emotional intelligence is being able to be self-aware and taking ownership, but also having the desire and being willing to work on that part of yourself that has to change.
And that is called humility, right? And that's vulnerability, and that's uncomfortable. Like, even if you catch yourself at a time when you're off, you're off. And most of the time, I would say, especially in the professional space, you have a good idea when you're off, and you even acknowledge that, like, I think I might not be on all cylinders, or I think I'm having a stronger reaction to this than I expected. This is tough for me. That simple acknowledgement sets you on the road to a more intelligent, emotionally intelligent conversation. So that humility, you need safety for that. But here's the good news. When you have a safe environment in the corporate space, profits go up, productivity goes up, science, attrition goes down. That means we want leaders that have a strong working skill set that includes high emotional intelligence. Because when you don't have one, that's where you get that fact that people leave managers, not companies.
Dr. Boykin,
What's up?
You mentioned safe space. Now, this is not part of my questions, but it just came to mind as you were talking. And you said something about safe spaces. Now, I want to know how you feel about safe. Well, you said something about safe spaces, but I want to also know, have you heard the term brave spaces?
Yes.
How do you feel
I'm
about
quite familiar. I think that, look, that when I'm referring to safe spaces, when I have that one-on-one with my manager, I should be able to talk as freely as this professional setting allows. That means I can't go cursing people out, right? I can't go I'm not having a home conversation, right? I'm still at work. But I should be able to say, I heard this rumor. What do you think? I heard this rumor. I actually want to gossip about it. And I know I can't say it to anybody else because it might send them off. I'd like to. And an emotionally intelligent leader is going to allow you to say that, is going to say, thank you. I've heard you out. Are we good now? Can we move forward from this? Yes, we can. And off we go. You know, brave spaces. I mean, it's tricky, right? It's a trick. Well, hold on. Let me back up. What do you think about brave spaces? It can't all be on me.
Well, the way I think about it is, and of course, you know, we're all learning here, but the way I think about it is, I'm thinking of in terms of, and I'm using the example of maybe a child, right? As parents, you try to get your children to understand that they can talk to you about anything, that this is a safe space for them to talk to you about anything. But then you still wonder why they don't talk about certain things to you or around you. And that's where I say, well, it might be a safe space, but they're not brave enough to come forward and talk to you for some reason. So even though
Right.
it may be safe, is that person still may not be brave enough to bring up that particular subject. So there's more work to do because the space has to be safe. It also have to be a space where people can feel brave enough to bring up much bigger issues.
And every
That's the way
time,
I look at it. Go ahead.
no, it makes total sense. And every time you level up in your career, you're renegotiating what brave is versus foolish, right? Like I have had the privilege of a senior leader that I immensely respect, ask me my opinion. And before I could even formulate a cohesive thought, self-regulation, I gave it to them. I gave it to them. And to their credit, they said, thank you. I asked for feedback. You've provided feedback. I felt safe. And you go back and you play these tapes over and over, and it's like, gosh, was this the time I should have been, trying to angle or position myself for promotion? Or should I have been toeing the company line? Or should I have been this? Or should I have been that? The fact was, it was a safe space. And I showed up as a brave person within that safe space and did exactly what was asked of me, which was share the feedback, right? And I had a job the next day, so that felt good too. So but safe spaces and brave spaces are not consequence-free spaces. If you are in a safe space with your boss, safe and brave does not mean consequence-free. So if you're in that one-on-one with your boss and you do go left or right, they can keep it and they can hold that. That doesn't mean the next time that they're in a room with their colleagues and they're talking about promotions, they don't say, I don't think they're ready yet. I want to see them grow their emotional intelligence. And if they're a great leader, they'll come back and tell you that too. And by the way, I have never had anyone that I have delivered that tough feedback to in that moment say, thank you so much, and mean it. But I have an over 50% rate of people coming back later and saying, thank you so much.
Wow. Thank you for that. I just was going to say also in my description was, and you mentioned it as well, but it could be a safe space, but then brave meaning, let's say if you're in a company meeting or whatever, and that person is brave enough to bring up an issue about the organization or whatever. So, but the issue is not central to them. It's about everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So that was another explanation for brave space.
Absolutely. But when you think about that through the lens of emotional intelligence, and you read that room, because I've done this more often than I should have based on my career path, right? But if you look at it through the lens of being emotionally intelligent, is it time to bring that up in that form? How will the other person perceive it? How will the other person be able to respond? Is there time to respond? Are you regulating the urgency you have for that question with what's going on in the whole experience. And I used to be that person, and I'm sure to some people I still am. They're like, oh, we know if you got a question. What's your question? And I'm like, you know what? I just finished the last page of emotional intelligence. I have no question. And it's not because I'm not brave, and it's not because it's not safe. It's because it's not the time or the place. And I have enough emotional intelligence to know that. So a lot of times that labeling, while I haven't encountered this, I know friends that have, where they get, called like they sold out, or, they didn't bring it, or you can't trust them, or they play the game. No, they have emotional intelligence, and you should join them. Join them.
All right. Now, tell me a time, or I should say, share an example of maybe a leader or two who you feel that had not exercised great or emotional intelligence at all. Tell me a time that, in your experience, either a leader or you yourself as a leader, when you felt like you could look back at it now and say, I didn't practice good emotional intelligence, so I didn't practice it at all.
So I'd like to add a disclaimer. Every single one of my managers have always had incredibly flawless emotional intelligence. So I could not possibly be talking about one of them. I will share this time. It's actually an example where I didn't have high emotional intelligence, and I felt that they didn't either. So the scenario, and I've talked about this before, is I was bringing this full project across the finish line. It was really hard, and it was coming on the heels of me taking on additional work. And there was one component that I felt I had negotiated support for. I felt that I had done a very good job being very clear that I could do all this, but not if I had to do this part. And apparently, I was alone in that feeling. Like, this whole mapped out conversation that I felt that was really clear about the support that I would need was only clear to me, and was only timeline to me. And so I come back to the table and I'm like, okay, who's doing this? And what are you doing? And they're like, not doing nothing. What? And I'm like, no, this is on tape. This is recorded. I've got this down. Like, I've got it in writing. I've got it in video. This is what you're supposed to do. And I felt, because they had been assigned that, forget empathy, forget communication, forget reading the room, forget motivation and looking at how I'm managing stakeholders. They just should have done it. It was on their list of things to do. And I made it very clear through my face and tone that I was not happy in that meeting. And after that meeting, my manager reached out and shared with me some feedback and said, that meeting kind of fell flat. It didn't end well. And the tone of it was not what we wanted. And I was like, could we talk about my accomplishments of getting this program to this point instead of my attitude when I didn't get the support I needed? In that moment, I lacked emotional intelligence. Wow. Because what I wanted to do was to be right. I didn't want to be effective. I didn't want to be collaborative. I wanted to get them off my back and tell them to STFU because I had done my part. But that's not emotional intelligence, right? That is not self-regulation.
Right.
I had no self-regulation. At the same time, that leader that was coaching me in that moment probably could have started off with a stronger acknowledge. Probably could have showed more empathy for where I was, if their goal was to bring me along in the journey and have me self-discover. If their goal was to correct and issue a correction, they did that. But when the two of us connected on that, our collective emotional intelligence wasn't firing. Because I left that conversation with a new tagline, talk about my accomplishments, not my attitude. And they left that conversation with a less productive employee.
Wow.
Failure on both sides, right?
Thank you for that example. And one thing that I normally say, and I usually use this in terms of maturity, but I think this can correlate with emotional intelligence. because we talked about this before, that a part of being emotionally intelligent is giving up your right to be right. And I always say that in terms of maturity. You know that you have reached a level of maturity in a specific area when you can give up your right to be right. When it doesn't matter if I'm right. What matters is, what did I learn?
Mm-hmm.
Did I grow? Did somebody else grow? What was the experience? What was the greater impact? What was the greater outcome? So I appreciate that experience that you just shared with us. So I hope everybody out there is getting something from this conversation with Dr. V. She is on fire. We're going to take a quick pause, a timeout, and we're going to go to a commercial break for a few advertisements, but we're going to be right back. Those of you that are out there listening, if you have a question or you have a statement that you want to contribute to the program, what I want to do is I want to drop the guest link in the chat. And if you are somebody who has a question for Dr. Boykin or a question for myself that's related to the subject, or again, a statement of what you are getting out of tonight's broadcast, I want you to click that link so we can bring you up real quick and you can ask your question or make your statement. So we're going to do that really quick right after this brief timeout. We'll be right back.
Dr. Ian Buchanan, a native of East St. Louis, Illinois, is the CEO of the NIA Education Group. He is deeply committed to servant leadership and addressing inequities. His best-selling book, King, a 4-part leadership framework for Black men, is making waves in the leadership community. His extensive experience spans teaching, school leadership, and advocacy. Pick up your copy of King today wherever books are sold. Dr. Candicia Randolph's book, The Black American Church, Leadership Dispensation and Challenges, critically examines leadership within the Black church, drawing from historical and anthropological perspectives. It identifies challenges faced by this vital institution in the Black American community and proposes practical solutions. The church's impact on Black culture and leadership is explored, emphasizing its historical context and influence over nearly 5 centuries. Through research and data, the manuscript aims to enhance the church's effectiveness and cultural relevance. Get your copy where books are sold today.
All right, we are back. And once again, if you're listening, if you're watching, I dropped a guest link in the private chat. We want you to come up and ask a question or make a relevant statement on how this conversation has been meaningful for you today. So thank you, Justin Cole. He reached out and said, great insightful example, Dr. V. Sorry about that. Thank you, Justin Cole. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate your comment, and we thank you and hope that you will continue to be a part of DrWhitty Today broadcast. All right, so Dr. V.
What's up? You know,
go ahead.
When we were talking earlier, there's something that just struck me in what you said, because you were talking about being right. And what just jumped in my mind is like the only time being right matters is when you're on a game show. And a lot of us are running our careers like a game show instead of a collaborative career experience, right? We're like, it's Jeopardy. I'm right. and it doesn't matter if you're right. It matters if you're collaborative. It matters if you're self-aware. It matters if you can self-regulate. It matters if you have empathy. This is not a daily double. It's not going to get us there.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to post that comment myself.
All right.
It doesn't matter if you're right. It matters if you collaborate.
That's true. That's true. It took me 49 and a half years to learn it.
I had to do that. I had to do that. I had to do that.
Love it. Look, it's not an easy one.
Yeah.
It's not an easy one because we're conditioned that being right is what's valuable. I mean, when you're in school and the teacher says, who knows, you raise your hand and you want to be right. And then you get to the workplace and it's not about being right. It's not.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. It's
I know. I know a few of my managers are that when they watch this, they'll be like, where were you when I wanted to manage you? Like, could I have gotten this version of Dr. B? Because it's not always been like this, real talk.
Wow. You know, as you were talking, all I could think of is it only matters being right when you're taking tests.
It matters then. Yep, that's another time. You're
taking tests.
That's true too.
So
yeah.
It made me think that we have to be emotionally intelligent and mature enough to know when the situation we're in, whether or not it's a test, personal to us, versus we're in a situation that has nothing to do with that. So it doesn't really matter if you're right or wrong, but when it's specific, a specific test for you, you might have to make a right decision or right move.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's
but not
when you thought of that. Go ahead.
And listen to what you said. You have to figure out if it's a test, not if someone is testing your patience. That is not what we were talking about.
Right.
Because that self-regulation goes out the window when you think someone's just just trying to test me. That's not the type of test we're talking about.
And see, that's another opportunity to become more emotionally intelligent, because what I come to find and what I firmly believe is that most of the time when somebody is testing our patience or plucking our last nerve, as we put it, it's really because there's something in them that is in us that we don't like, that we haven't dealt with ourselves. And so we say that person is getting on our nerves, or that person is plucking my last nerve. But it's really because we've identified something about their personality that we haven't dealt with in our own personality. And so we have that conflict there. And so that's all a part of being emotionally intelligent and growing ourselves.
Absolutely.
All right. So highlight the role, and I think we talked a little bit about it, but highlight the role of empathy in effective leadership. Because you mentioned empathy as one of the components of being emotionally intelligent.
I think it's important when you think about a leader. They have a fiduciary responsibility to decrease the stress in the workplace, right? That is a core fundamental requirement of a leader, in my view. I haven't always been good at that. You know, I've had some brilliant people work under me, and either I wasn't aware of the stressors they were going through, which as a leader, shame on me, right? Because you're not learning your team. Or I was aware of what they were going through and didn't care, because the goal in front of me had gotten so insurmountable. I chose to not have time to care. And the reason that matters is because as soon as you don't care, productivity drops. So it's not about being nice.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
The minute as a leader you stop caring, productivity drops. I will guesstimate that we have a less than 2% deviance from the statement that if my manager doesn't care about me, I don't care about them. And by them, it doesn't just mean your manager, it means the company. You don't feel bad taking a longer break if you don't care about your manager or the company by extension. And you will rail against working longer hours. But when you care, when you feel supported, when you know they care, and therefore you care in exchange, you're not tripping off an extra 30 minutes of work, that extra effort it takes. So as managers, empathy is a tool to maximize team productivity. That's why it matters.
Wow. That is awesome. It just made me think of another one of my favorite quotes by Dr. John Maxwell. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
It's so true.
And the funny thing is that there are leaders that still don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think about my time as one of my most favorite experiences when in the military is when I was in Tennessee, and I remember I had this group of soldiers, and I mean, they were just so awesome. Whatever I needed them to do, they would do it. They never gave me any problem. And I mean, they even went so far as to one time, I had a car repossession, and one of them would pick me up, bring me to work, even told me, hey, I don't need my truck. You can use it as long as you need it. That was awesome. I had a time where I had to move, where I had bought a house and I had to move from one house to the next. And my soldiers just showed up. I mean, all I did was ask them to move a few boxes, but I mean, they went out and got their friends, showed up and moved the entire house. Like, I literally did not have to lift anything. All I had to do was say, oh, I want it over here. I want it over there. And when I look back on that, I say to myself, the reason why, and I would tell this to every person in a leadership role, I would say, your soldiers will do anything for you as long as they know that you have their best interests at heart.
That's right.
If for 1 second they think you don't care, you're not going to be able to get them to do what you need them to do. And so I totally agree that when that care level drops, so does productivity.
That's right.
And I had one leader, and I'm not going to mention the person's name. But,
we're not calling names today.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention the name, but I would witness this level of production and this level of devotion and commitment and things like that from certain people, and then it lacked when it came to other people. But then when you stood back and you watched, the ones that had this strong devotion were the ones that knew that they were cared about. They knew that they could,
I'm sorry, we're going to talk about leaders playing favorites?
Well, it could have been that, but I'm just going to keep it as they knew that they were cared about. They knew that they could go to this leader with anything. They felt safe. They felt brave. But then the other ones that were less productive or maybe wasn't as committed, it was like there was always something like, well, you know, that person doesn't really care about my situation. That person doesn't care about me personally. That person never asked me how I'm doing, and I really feel like it's genuine. So yeah, it all goes with what you said. When that care level, if people feel that you don't care, they're not going to produce, because in essence they feel like, well, why should I'm wasting my time? So yeah, go ahead.
One of the things that I think everybody, I would imagine, because I know my tribe wouldn't leave me out here alone, right, is being in that situation where you feel you're not the favorite. Mm-hmm. And as a leader, if everybody looked at being a favorite like sunshine, if I walk out into the sun, that doesn't mean you're going to get less if you walk out with me. And many times we're our own worst enemy, because they're definitely favorites, okay, but that doesn't mean there's less space for you. And as a leader, same thing applies. You definitely have favorites, but that doesn't mean there's not room for more of them. It's not a one slot shop. And when you invest in your own emotional intelligence, you're able to see that there's still room for you to be a favorite. The other book that I think goes hand in hand with emotional intelligence is Crucial Conversations. I read that within the last 8 years. And I was like, wait a minute, I can approach a conflict saying we can agree on this and we still need to solve for this. That blew my mind, because it's truly an avenue of emotional intelligence. What can we align on to chart our best collaborative way through this situation? So, if you're wondering, like, yeah, that emotional intelligence is great, but my boss doesn't like me, they're not going to like me. They aren't going to recognize my brilliance. And any chance they get, they're going to steal or smother my work. That's okay. And you're like, no, it's not okay. It is okay, because you're going to self-regulate. You're going to, between stimulus and response, there's a space. You control that space. And so how much you freak out about how much they don't like you and this whole narrative you create, they're not even, if they don't like you, trust me, they're not thinking about you. They are not thinking of ways to destroy your life. There's not a leader out there that is thinking of a way to destroy your life. I have never thought of a way I can destroy someone's life, even when I didn't like them, especially when I didn't like them. That's not how it works. It's not.
Thank you. It's interesting that you brought up the crucial conversations, because that's a good segue to this question. Okay. Well, not question, but I was going to ask you to discuss some conflict resolution techniques for having crucial conversations and dealing with difficult personalities.
Ooh, well, my favorite, I've reformed since then, but my favorite used to be just tell everybody that you can until you find enough people that agree with you that you don't feel bad about feeling the way you're feeling anymore. That is not. I do not recommend that. But truly, finding common ground. And you may be the only person that's entering the conversation in good faith. And you have to be prepared for that, because we're talking about self-regulation, and you can't regulate others. And if people want to act in a different way, that's really none of your business either. But going in and saying, I think we both agree on this. Would you agree? Yes. Based on this foundation, I'm having some challenges in this area, and I'd like to chart them through with you. And that, you don't call them out, you call them out. And that's how you have that conversation. It also might start with, what I don't want is, but what I do want is, right? What I don't want is for us to leave this conversation with less understanding of each other than we entered it. What I don't want is for you to leave this conversation offended by something that I said. What I desperately do want is for us to leave this conversation understanding each other more and having an even stronger foundation of respect between us. Would you agree that that would make sense as a goal of this conversation? Right? What I don't want, what I do want, here's our agreement. Can we move forward? I think that's a really good way of having those challenging conversations.
Wow. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Wow, this is, I hope the people that are watching and listening are keeping these, writing these gems down, because, or at least that you're going to go back and that you're going to watch this and listen to this again. And I'll be honest, I tell people all the time, when they talk to me about the different podcast episodes, I tell them, hey, I go back and I listen to them and I watch them at least 5 or 6 times. And I'm telling you, every time I do it, there's something that I did not hear, something that didn't register the same way. And I'm always impacted by it each and every time that I listen or watch. So thank you for everything that you're giving out in this conversation. Dr. Boykin, why should leaders prioritize compassion and kindness? Why should leaders prioritize that?
Because it's good for business. It's straight out. It doesn't, we can should all over people all day long. You should because you're a good human. You should because it aligns with your religious or moral values. You should because it's kindness, and kindness is what we need. You should because you've probably been in a similar situation. But if all the shoulding fails, because it's good for the bottom line, it decreases attrition. Attrition is expensive. And it doesn't matter how much the company wanted that employee out When that employee leaves and you are the reason that they have left, or you're the supervising manager, it marks you. It does. Even if they hated the person. Well, they would never say hate. Even if they didn't appreciate the person to the fullest extent of their abilities, you're still the manager that did it. And it's still a mark against you. So it makes good business sense. It increases productivity. It increases belonging. People will work harder for you. So it should be the most selfish thing you do in the most unselfish way. Kindness, compassion, empathy, understanding, all unselfish acts that drive and meet the need of a very selfish capitalistic purpose. But I don't care why you do it. I don't care why you're kind. I don't care why you're inclusive. I don't care why you select a diverse team. I don't care if it's 100% profit and you don't subscribe to any of it. I don't care why you do it. I care that you do it.
Wow, exactly. Well, we could definitely take this conversation in a lot of different
Yeah, we can hang out.
directions, but I'm just this is great, and I'm sure we're going to do it again. It may be a part two to this discussion, but if not, we're certainly going to do this again. I really would like somebody that is watching and listening to click that link in the chat and ask us a question, make a statement about the impact of the episode. We're about to close out, so what I'm going to do real quick, Dr. V, I'm going to ask you that if it's one thing that you want to say to a leader, one thing that you would say to a leader, and one thing that you would say to an employee, or just your everyday person, whether they're an employee at the organization or not, they're probably an employee somewhere. One thing you would say to a leader, one thing that you would say to an employee about emotional intelligence.
It's the same thing. Invest in your emotional intelligence one time a quarter. Whether that's rereading a book, whether that's focusing on one specific area, actively invest in developing your emotional intelligence every single quarter. There is no way it will not pay off in dividends. People will either enjoy working with you more, which will elevate your capital, right? Or they'll work harder for you. Either way, it's how you navigate the corporate landscape. Investing in your emotional intelligence is how you navigate the corporate landscape successfully. The more aware you are, the more regulated you are, the more empathetic with accountability you are, the more you understand people's motivations, the more you develop your social skills, the more proficient you will be in moving throughout the organization, whether that's horizontally or vertically. Invest in it. It's that simple. You cannot, and there are certain people that have certain disabilities that have to mimic and actually learn how to replicate things they cannot feel. They may not feel empathy. Hats off to those people. Those are the hardworking ones. If you do not have a disability in that area, you literally have zero excuse for not becoming more emotionally intelligent on a quarterly basis.
All right, thank you for that. Justin Cole has a question. How do you get the most out of your manager in terms of one-on-one?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. The number one thing you have to do is identify what you want. Managers aren't magicians. So if you want something, if there's an area you want to develop, that's your job to bring it to the table. It's your manager's job to help you identify resources and see different facets of the skill that you want to develop, but it's your job to identify the skill. So everybody that's waiting on their manager to develop them, you should be waiting. You don't deserve the development yet. That's self-awareness. What do I need to work on? Manager, I need to work on X. Can you help me see opportunities where I can do that? And when you think about me and X skill, what do you see as areas of opportunity around that? Because no manager wants to be in front of HR saying, yep, I told him he had absolutely no self-regulation and was never going to make it in this business. They can't say that to you. So you've got to bring it to the table. So if you know that there's a weakness, or you have a manager that's brave enough to tell you what your weakness is, it's your job to ask for that area to be expanded, developed, and strengthened. So, Justin, what I would tell you is to make that list of things you think you need to develop. Take that list to your manager. Here are about top 5 things I think I need to develop based on what you know about me. What do you think might be the top 2 skills? Would you be willing to work with me on these 2 skills over the next 6 months, and let's see the progress we could make? And I'd like you to put me in situations where I can practice this. And then don't get mad when they put you in those situations. You need to work on organization, and they give you the team file cabinet, virtual file cabinet. Don't be upset. That's what you asked for.
And hold them accountable. I like to tell people, just as much as you're held accountable by your leader, hold your leader accountable to you, because some leaders will they will not work at developing you. So you have to know what you want, know what you don't want, take it to that leader, and then hold them accountable if you see that they're the type of leader that if you don't come back and check, they never give you a challenge, they never assign you anything, and they might just be testing you, but they might just don't want to do it as well. So you have to hold them accountable as well. So that is a great question. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. They might not know how to do it. And that's where getting a mentor or a coach comes in too, because your manager is paid to manage the team, and your personal and professional development may fall outside of what your manager can or is willing to provide. That's okay. There's other resources.
Yep. Like you said, that's where that coach comes in, that coach or mentor, and be able to make sure that you are picking, what do you call it? I don't want to use the term right, but in a sense, that's what's coming to mind.
Wisely.
You have to pick wisely who that coach and that mentor is, and you have to make sure that they too are willing to be a coach or a mentor to you, and that it's the proper fit. Because sometimes the people we want to coach and mentor us are not the right fit for us. So we have to make sure the fit is right.
So true. So true.
Yep.
I want Oprah to be my coach. No, you don't. She's going to have about 2 minutes for you every 2 years. That is not who you want. You think you want that. That's not who you want.
Yeah. And don't be afraid as well to do things like you're doing. You're on this podcast, and this is a part of your self-development. This is a part of our learning and self-development. As Dr. Boykin said, she reads books. I have books. I started off. My first mentor was John Well, I will say, pretty much my first leadership mentor that I really considered was a true leadership mentor to me. I'll say he was second, because I did have one that was a mentor, but he became one, but I never saw him or met him. But I met him I connected through reading his books. And so I always have him as one of my top mentors. All right.
I've had some great ones. Yeah.
So that's going to wrap it up for us on DrWhitty Today for this episode. We have some upcoming episodes that I would, let's see. We have, let's see if I can, coming up on May the 28th, we'll be talking about communication skills for leaders with Dr. Candicia Randolph. We also have Dr. Timothy Felton that's going to be coming on June 10th. He's going to be talking about his book called Black Boys Matter. And that book is talking about its understanding and addressing the challenges that Black boys face. So we have a few episodes coming up. I'm locking in some great doctors and just speakers from all over to come in and have a discussion and talk. Some of them will be talking about their books. And so we invite you to come back to DrWhitty Today. It is every other Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And hey, that's all we have. Dr. V. Boykin, tell everybody where they can find you outside of DrWhitty Today.
Thank you so much. drvboykin.com and LinkedIn, Dr. V Boykin. I hope I see you all there.
All right, you guys can catch me here on DrWhitty Today. You can also catch me on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Until next time, DrWhitty Today, I hope that your heart, your mind, your spirit went to college with myself and Dr. B. Boykin. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on DrWhitty Today. We appreciate your time and viewership. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and most importantly, subscribe. Your support keeps us going, and we can't wait to have you back. Until then, stay curious, stay inspired, stay motivated, and stay tuned.